Hi, this is Sally Wood for Be Inspired, and today I'm going to show you how to cut a feather cushion in half. I would say with minimal mess, but there's always mess with feathers, so we'll see how well we do. So let's get on with it. So by cutting those 21-inch cushions in half, I need to have new inserts to go on them. They've got to be finished width of 10 inches. So I'm going to cut this at 11. I'm going to start at this end here. I'm going to overstitch it, so forward and back. And it's only a foot width apart, so the raw edge is actually running on the outside edge of the sewn foot. Now when you get to the other end, where the fold is, or you might have actually had an open seam here. If it's folded, just go into the end here, forward and reverse. And if not, leave your needle down and carry on around. Now I'm going to, again, start at the other end here and do the same thing. So here's the cushion I'm going to be cutting in half. And I'm going to measure from that seam across to that and divide it. And that is actually 20.5, so that's 10.25 inches there. And here it is 20, so I'm going to put 10 there. Then I'm going to mark either side 1/4 inch like this, and the same here. Then measure and do the same on the other side, and don't take it that a cushion is exactly square, because it isn't. This one is altered again. Then go back to your marks and go 1/4 inch either side, just like you did on the other side. This is actually quite important. Then using a ruler or a yardstick, something long, join your marks together and draw in all 3 marks. You're going to need them. Try to keep them as close as you can to straight. And then take the lines all the way down to the side of your cushion, all 3 lines. These don't have to be perfect, but just as straight as you can, all the way around. So that's one side. This is just a guide. Take marks down, and hopefully, if you're lucky, everything will line up. Now on this side it very nearly matched up, which is good, and on this side it didn't. So when that happens, stretch out the cushion like that, and then work out which side is correct. And it looks like this is the center line. So I'm going to have to bring all of these over. This isn't an even cushion. This is one way and one the other. So I'm going to mark this as the center line here, and then bring all of those lines in so it matches. And if you've got an obsolete line, just put a cross through it like that, and we're good to go. Now you need to start your thread off in here, and I know I'm using white, so you're going to have to just bear with me. Go back along your line. All you're going to be doing is a straight stitch. So I'm going to poke that through here, and then I'm going to put it back through, but it's on the outer line like that. Try to keep it even. I'm just poking it back through here. So if you're putting 1/2 inch stitches in, try to make it 1/2 inch on both sides. Of course, that doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to stay. So I'm going to put my stitch in here, coming out there. Twist it, put my stitch in here like this, and come out there. And I'm going to do that all the way to the center on one side, and then I'm going to start at the other end and do exactly the same. This is a bit time consuming, but I would much rather do it like this than to have all those feathers flying around. When you get so far, you pull and you push your feathers down into the center as you pull. The only thing is that if you pull it from too far out, you will find that you literally split this fabric with the upholstery thread, and you need upholstery thread. So I've got it a little bit further down, fold all this in, roll that in, pull, and push that back through. Now just remember to follow the line that you're on. If you swap over, then you're going to have trouble later when you split the cushions. Now I've started from this end so that I can join up with this end, and again just sew them in, and when you get so far, pull your stitches tight, roll those feathers into place. Just make sure it's pulling through. See, this isn't wanting to do what I want it to do, so hopefully that's close enough. There we go. Just make sure that this is as tight as you can make it without splitting the outside fabric. Now, when you've worked all the way to the center, Wriggle those feathers into place and tie it off as tightly as you can 2 or 3 times so that it's not going to come out. And then start again. Here again I'm sewing down the outer line like I was before into the center, and then I'll start at the other end and work towards the center. The second side is a lot easier than the first because you've already pulled it in. So if you're not really sure about how tight you're pulling it in, my advice is sew down the center line and then either side. It will take a bit longer to do it that way, but this is the key to doing it, is to get these stitches as tight as you possibly can. So along here where I sewed originally, it has given. As long as when I cut them apart I do it gently, I should be fine. I shouldn't lose too many feathers at all. You do big stitches like this and then it doesn't crunch your fabric into little pleats. Now again, oops, those are the ties for that end. Here's the ties for this end, and I am just going to rock that in and just pull both sets of ties as tightly as I can and tie them off. Now I will tell you that the threads have already given slightly, and that happens. It's the resistance of the feathers causes it to pop back out. So it's always advisable to have the new covers ready. So I'm going to just nip those off. All I'm going to do is cut down the center like this. At some point I just change to one side because to go through all of the feathers is a bit awkward, and you don't want this twisting as you're doing it. And you cut all the way to the end. You can feel it twisting under my hand, and I'm going to very carefully twist that over like that and go down the other way, and then they should be nicely apart. So there's one side and there's the other. Now I made a bag about the right size for this, and you can see where it's trying to come apart. So I'm just going to pop this over here. I'm going to twist it so I can push the feathers back in and hold, and then slip that in. Once I've got so far I can release it and then pinch again and ease it further on until the whole thing is in its new bag. Now I used calico for some of these covers, and I also used old curtain lining. The ticking, the proper stuff should be on here, and we're just holding it together, so you shouldn't need to use ticking, but you could if you want to. And ticking is just the way the fabric is woven. It should be a nice tight weave to help prevent the feathers from poking out. I'm going to have to put my hand in here and pull that down. It's a tight squeeze because I had to make them as close to the size of this as possible so that the stitching here doesn't come apart. Otherwise we'd have other problems going on. So try to get the corners in the corners like that. And the seam, if you've got one, going straight, but it doesn't matter too much. And that's the feathers. I don't think that's too bad for cutting a cushion in half. Once they're in, fold the fabric over like that and take it as close as you can to the existing cushion. You want everything in there as tight as you can possibly make it, and pin in the direction you're going to be sewing from. Put that side in as well. Just make it as even as you can. If it's slightly over, don't worry, it'll all be squashed into the exterior cover. Just make sure you don't catch it, otherwise your sewing's going to go a bit funky. There we go, that's the middle one. Now, unlike the back cushions that I did the other day, I'm leaving the machine bed on. I'm going to remove the pin and I'm going to push down the inside original cover. Thank you for joining me today on this little project. The trick to this is actually to keep those stitches really tight, and if you don't, you will end up with more feathers lying around than you want. But it's easy, nice and easy. You just got to make sure that your measurements are right. You don't have to cut the thing in half. Maybe you just want to downsize on it, but I would still put the 2 lines of sewing in so that whatever you don't want can just go straight in the bin. If you would like to hear more from me, please subscribe and hit the bell button.
And in the meantime, take care. See you later. Ciao.
Go away, bad cat.